When did you first meet Gwen?
My first encounter was at a party. She was just a young teenager, and I think we have 4 years difference, so she was, probably about 14. Beautiful young girl, likened to her daughters. And so that was, my mother and I had stopped by. I think it might have been even at Gwen's home. They always had parties at Gwen's home. Her mother and father were very hospitable people. One was Irish, one was Italian, and just always had some kind of events going on. My brother lived over there. He really enjoyed being in their home and that home life.
What is the first thing that you remember? What struck you about her? I mean, at the time, you met her because she was dating your brother.
Right.
What was your recollection?
Well, my first impression is, she was a very beautiful young woman, very sweet. And, she just had a very, trying to think back in my mind then, whereas, now I would say something differently, but just thinking back as my first impression of her would be that she was somebody that would be wonderful for my brother to be with. You didn't have like an aversion, like, why did you choose that kind of a girl? No, it was very, very welcoming, very happy that.
How would Mr. Coniker, your brother, speak of her to you when she wasn't, of course, present?
Well, we didn't talk a whole lot in those days, kids were running around, but I always got the impression of how much of a friend they were. They were always great friends to each other. And the fact that he always loved to be over at her house, and they would play cards, and it was just that kind of a relationship. They would always be very family. Jerry was drawn to that. My father had died, and so we didn't have the family unit like Gwen had. She definitely had a very definite family unit, and they just had a great friendship all through their high school years.
Now, your mother, what do you recall or remember about the relationship or between your mother and Gwen?
Oh, my mother always loved Gwen. I can say that honestly. She always, and her mother and my mother became good friends, which is kind of interesting, isn't it? So they became very good friends, and now she always loved Gwen. Definitely. Always had that wonderful feeling with her.
What do you think it was about Gwen that would just, because she was good for Jerry, or?
Well, I think, definitely she would be someone that brought him a lot of peace. And my brother's always been a very active kind of person, even when he was a teenager, always coming home with a black eye or something, So, but anyway, I mean, he was always active in many, many things, and there was just a peace about Jerry when he was with Gwen. He always came home happy.
She was able to really...
Yeah, that definitely was there in Gwen's personality from the very beginning.
So are they rather different personalities?
Oh, yes, very definitely. Very definitely. And they, those personalities complement each other. And like Jerry always says, she was saint living with him. And, he was only 19 when he started his own business, and he's very young in his enterprises. And I would say that sometimes myself, I would say, oh, Gwen, how do you put up with this, And, it was something about Gwen that there was such a defined loyalty of foreverness in the relationship. It wasn't like, well, today, if you do that, then that's it, I'm leaving, That was never present in Gwen, ever.
That's quite a...
And that was something, in recalling things about Gwen, that is one of the things that I would say. There was always that no matter what it is, we will be together.
Right.
You know, so that, and that's not easy when you're dealing with someone that has a mission in life and many things that occurred, and
12 children.
you know, and all these children, and then moving to Portugal and all of these things, and things of the country. You know, he always had this awareness of the country and of God, and as one of his daughters said today, things that he taught her between the ages of 7 and 11 are what come back to her now as a mother. And that as a teenager they may have, you know, been put aside, but she recalled the actual ages from 7 to 11 and said that these were things that were very clearly taught to her. And that she said that she felt her father always had a desire not to only save their souls, but then I want to save all souls.
Right.
And Gwen was there with him.
Right.
You know, so, you know, I don't like to, at this time, you know, where it's very grave and you have lots of emotions, you know, I don't like to pretend like somebody, you know, oh, the perfect person.
Right.
No, she had a lot of things that she had to fight. You know, she had to really say, you know, I don't want to do this. And, you know, that's probably one of the biggest things that I noticed, how she coped with those things and how she went on to still stay very loyal. See, that was something very ingrained, obviously, in her childhood, is that foreverness in a marriage. And that's one of the things that Jerry and Gwen, you know, have emerged with, is that foreverness to the end.
And they do, and it's
And then some.
right. It's such an important aspect of the apostolate, which they now
Right.
lead together as
That's
best
right.
they can.
And I remember when that was emerging, and I couldn't understand that at all. And, you know, there really wasn't, I think as I mentioned in another interview, there was never any real support. You know, I was saying, oh gosh, this is a great idea. You know, where'd you get that? No, it was really a developing of a mission that was being given. And where Gwen fit in that mission. And as I made some kind of notes here about, you know, my biggest thing with Gwen is the outpouring of love that is being given to her. And how do you get people to love you like that? You know, her children are just tripping over each other, trying to serve her. You know, it's just a beautiful, and I think one of the biggest things Gwen's virtues observed over these 40 years of friendship is what I had is she listens. She's a very good listener. Every one of her children have said she's always there for me. What you mentioned was the deepest wound of this person. She doesn't judge you. She really listens to you. She seeks to understand, and that's developed in her personality. You know, I mean, that wasn't there as a teenager, but through the years, you could see that development. And she has an ability to love you unconditionally. She doesn't put conditions on that love, so that's what you see with the wide variety of her children's personalities, that each one, without reservation, said, you loved me. And which is a beautiful thing, because I guess we try to have everybody believe that God the Father loves us. It's very hard to believe sometimes that we're loved. And then I just felt that there's great graces that had been working in that family. And that's one of the biggest things that I think is her ability to receive love from people. She allows people to give to her now in her illness. She doesn't resent it. She appreciates it. and she makes you feel very good being in her presence. I mean, that is an incredible thing. And as I said here, to watch somebody at this time, and many times people, when they're in this state, they have guilt, they have resentment, they have, why didn't I do? She doesn't have that. She has perfect peace. And well, again, I thought she's not passive. She's still directing little things in the room and making sure they put away this, and, and she's getting up when she can, and she's still the mother, in the presence of all this, but she has total confidence in her children. Every one of them. It's not like, don't forget to do this. And they are caring for her in such a miraculous manner. I mean, it's just, she's never alone. Jerry, as busy as he is, hasn't left her side. And as I said to one of their children driving here from the airport, just thinking about it on the plane, and that I think the uniqueness of this family is that all of them are in their role. And they do their role to the best of their ability. And Gwen was a mother, and Jerry was a father. And without that combination, Gwen could not be the mother she is, with her gentleness and her, all of her beautiful qualities would have been covered over. Is when single mothers or, different things, and the father isn't taking on the wonderful role of protector and the guiding beacon to the right path in life. And not that, everybody has to be perfect, but they have some kind of a mission that is engraved in their heart, that this is my role and I'm not going to deviate. I'm not throwing it aside. I'm not going to decide after a certain amount of time that this just isn't for me, it doesn't make me happy anymore. No, their happiness. And another thing that is just incredible is that all the children say, she's happiest when we're there. That they feel that. I think that's just an incredible tribute to Gwen. Her happiness drives around being around her family. And, many times in today's busy world, we're always looking to perhaps get away, whatever. In her time now, like last night, I just saw her completely perk up. All of them came in quietly. They respect not bringing all the grandchildren. They bring one or two. They bring her, a little present, and then they walk out. And, this isn't a joke. This is someone that's very, very ill. But to see this ability not to feel stiff around her at this time, not to feel uncomfortable. Many times that will happen when people are gravely ill and you don't know what's going to happen. They don't know how to deal with their mother, but these children are just, so watching this family grow into a family and watch this family grow in their virtues. And I think the key thing there was the roles that they play. They all play a role in their family life where they belong. These girls are all homemakers, and like they said, they've all had troubles. Everybody has their circumstances. Our Lord certainly did in His life, and yet they all have this forever kind of mentality that I feel in that family. There's a lot of strength in that family, and graces that are pouring down. Like one of the daughters said, well, these are graces, we don't have this on an ordinary level, So I think it was tremendously courageous to start a family apostolate, to be in a fishbowl with 12 children, and knowing that you can't control 12 children. You're just going to have the fallouts, and you're going to have the heartaches, and you're going to have all of these things, but where is it ending, I mean, we're praying very much for divine intervention, but like Gwen said last night, when I speak to the Lord, I just ask him for more time when she speaks to him at night. And I thought that was remarkable. She didn't ask for not to have pain. She just asked for more time. So there's Jerry has always loved the quality of Gwen, and I think that stemmed way back in his teenage years, that quality of life, that quality of having fun.
Yes.
And, that was, Jerry's very serious. He's very, as I was talking to his son, I said he has very much a mentality like the mission of the Holy Father,
right,
where our Holy Father is very focused and nothing's going to stop him, and he's going to keep going in spite of illness, in spite of Parkinson's, in spite of bullets, and that's the kind of thing they've lived with their father.
Yes.
I said, but he has always been there in the role. We're not perfect, and I think that's one of the unique things about that family is, they don't pretend to be perfect.
Right.
They don't play a duplistic life like, here we are on the camera, I am the perfect family. No, they've always been very honest, very open. We all have things that we deal with in our lives. But, that's one of the things is that pleasure of serving Gwen. And their ability to be so at ease with her now. So at ease. So that is a love that she's given to them.
Well, it speaks volumes, I mean.
It really does. And I think that today, as I was saying, that running through life today, sometimes like that father that missed that opportunity, you were mentioning of a boy wanting his father to be with him and inviting him to his basketball game, and he came and didn't stay, and that was a wound. Obviously other things had happened, but missing those opportunities, those windows of opportunities with our children, we miss them because many times we have to have someone helping us point it out and say, whoa, and then you're going to change around. You are. So I think that Gwen's, whatever God has in store now, we don't know, but we've come, and everybody wants to come and be with her from my family and from her sister's family. Jerry has to hold everybody kind of at bay, you can't all come at once. And she likes to be with you.
Yes, she does.
She likes to be one-on-one with you. That's what I notice when she's one-on-one. She can have the background of all her children, but I think, Jerry was trying to explain this to me, she does, and I was not agreeing as usual. And saying, well, we need to see her and be in her presence and as a special time, but now I see that she likes to be with you.
Yes.
You as a person count, and that's what she did with her children.
And I think a lot of your observations in there, just in being comfortable around her, I mean, that bespeaks a relationship that pre-existed prior to this point that would enable such a beautiful interaction at a difficult time.
It is very chilling to watch, I'll tell you. It's just every one of them coming in and serving beautiful lunches and bringing things down in a tray, serving their parents, serving me. I mean, it's just like... And they're so happy to be there. And these girls had to leave their families for 4 or 5 days, and the husbands had to take over. And again, all of these in-laws have this, like one of the girls said, well, we all have our problems. I said, but they're honest about that. They're not saying, well, yes, look at us, we are perfect, and it's not an act. It's an outpouring of true love. And those husbands or the wives are maintaining so that they know how much they love their mother so that they can be there. So I've seen many people just say, well, I'll just wait till the end and then go. But these children are trying to be with her as much as humanly possible, and her husband doesn't leave her side. And, his life is around her. And I think one of the biggest things now is, is the fact that they have brought to life, I guess, when I saw my brother and that whole family up there, for the Jubilee celebration of family. And I said that night was the celebration and the testimony to the Holy Father. And the theme, of course, was children are the springtime of civilization. And it was a gorgeous evening, the clouds and the blue sky and the gentle breeze. And we were, just feet away from the Holy Father, and then seeing my brother in the distance, and then seeing them come up to be blessed by him was a very emotional moment. And you can just see where this apostolate is being called. And I think whatever God has in store, the mark of Gwen, we have to keep that alive. And that is, something that, it's the mark of the mother.
Yes, very much so.
The mother, our Lord elevated his mother. He elevated every woman that he encountered. Mary Magdalene, the first woman, the first person to see him after the resurrection, and then to see how he cared for his mother. His mother was always cared for, Joseph to Jesus to John. And it was always, she was never alone. And that's what this family does to their mother.
Yeah. It's interesting, you mentioned too, when you were mentioning, of course, this wouldn't be possible, this outpouring now, without the cooperation of Jerry.
Yes.
And in addition to that, with the children being able to be there,
yes,
they're great, the in-laws.
That's
those
right.
who are part of the family,
That's
not
right.
by blood, but
they're outstanding.
Their role too.
They're outstanding. That's what I'm saying. Everybody is in their role in a very unique way. If you really look at it, the in-laws are playing the role that they should play of supportive, of helping their spouse in the time of need and being there for them. They're all playing that role, So it's very, and that's developed, through the years, through a lot of hardship. And I think one of the things watching Gwen now at this moment where you're expecting perhaps God will perform, you're waiting, preparing for a miracle, but you're also observing this dear person you love, their human body is falling apart, so to speak. But the care of the spirit through the care of the body. Her spirit is being nurtured right along as the whole person. So I think that's probably what this apostolate is all about, is bringing the wholeness of family life. That whole idea that the wholeness of the person and really the mission of humanity is to be cared for within the family unit.
Let me ask you this. Speaking of the role of the apostolate, and of course, we're talking about the founding family, God's role, the role, would this be possible without grace?
No. Every one of the children say that. They know they have received tremendous graces to do this. Because their natures, each one has their own little natures, and they know that without grace and the blessings, God is blessing them for that sacrifice they made. Right. And Gwen made tremendous sacrifices against things that she didn't, as she said herself, she never wanted to leave her family, she wanted them all together. And so the family, someone else that had tutored one of the girls, was a Jewish woman. Mm-hmm. And I knew her very well, and she said, that family, and this was years ago, is very biblical. Because it's like the old, they gather together and they are very clannish and they very much stay together as a family, What, I think at this point when we have Gwen so gravely ill, and like the Holy Father was so gravely ill that all of his human qualities sort of faded. He was no longer this strong, robust man, and he was no longer the skier. He was frail. And in his frailty, he still loved you. And in her frailty, she's still loving you. So
his personhood still shone through his spirit.
That's right, the spirit of the soul. And we, in the apostolate now, whatever God has in mind, that is very, very important. That is something that is an always, kind of like you say, the always norms. and the always things, and that's that wonderful spirit. Because you look and you say, now what made the Holy Father with that charisma? And I look and say, what makes Gwen, people tripping over each other to be with her? They'll drop everything. I mean, and the in-laws love her, and they will do anything to facilitate their spouse being able to be with her.
I guess.
And that says a lot for the unity that she has brought, by her love.
I know as a child of loving parents that it's not until you get a little older that you appreciate, wow, my parents made loads of sacrifices for me, which I totally took for granted, sometimes even rejected.
Mm-hmm.
But you can see it's evident to me, or it certainly appears that they just realize how much they've been loved, and they want to return it.
That's right. And that's the main thing we have to do with our families is, we get so caught up with so many things that sometimes we lose that. And that's when the regrets happen, when you're gravely ill. But she doesn't have regrets. She just has that ability to give to you what you needed. And I found it quite astounding that you just wanted to sit there in the same room with her.
Let me take you back, if I may, to former times. What can you share with us? What was it like? You were raising your family, your mother of 12.
Yes.
So you both had only 4 years apart, so I presume you had young families at the same time.
Yes, we did.
What was that like?
Madhouse. But, we look back and we go, how on earth did we ever do that? And we got together a great deal. And for a long period of time, we came to their home on Thanksgiving. There was always the atmosphere. Everything was always, the candles and the flowers and the ambiance was always there. And her and I shared that. I loved that. And Jerry obviously loves that because, again, he facilitated that, And so we had, I had my first two were the oldest, and then Chuck and Ken. And then from Maureen and Peggy on, we had them every year just about. And so they all became great friends. Each one that they have a special bond with that child that was born at the same time they were, which is very unique. They still in their adulthood may not see each other, but that'll be the focus. Like Joe said, well, adult Jay, he can come and stay with me, with his family. Of course, anybody else, but it was kind of in Robert that, well, I know Jeff will come, So, they have that bond that was there through the years.
Right.
Yeah.
What was, I'm not a mother of 12, but what was your relationship like? Did that, being both mothers of a large family, and then, of course, being related by blood, did you have a special relationship, would you say, because of that? Right.
I think we had a very sisterly relationship. We were like sisters rather than sister-in-laws. I can honestly tell you we were sitting there together today being served lunch by her daughters, and I said, I don't remember ever having this kind of time to be together and just, we were always together in our mothering and everything, And then they left for Ohio, so that sort of separated us. That was very hard, That was a very hard move for everybody. So we were, I look on Gwen as my sister. I don't look on her as an in-law. We sort of grew up together and we did many, many things together, but we had a lot of fun. We did charades, we did everything. We just enjoyed being with our children. And so that was something that we both had in common.
Did you share much advice and counsel? Did she ever help you, or you ever be there for her in a given time that you can recall?
Well, I know that, to be very honest, Gwen's personality was very different than mine. And many times you don't see, you say, oh, well, you've got to be stronger in this. That would be my take on it. And Gwen's softness, her, I would say approachable. She was approachable. And there was several of my children that I would say were definitely helped by that approachability. And I would say, yes, I was there for some of hers, and we had a closeness that way, But I never, until you brought that out, I wouldn't think about that. But I do think, we had sort of, certain ones that, in the beginning years, you're just beginning your parenting, you just really are floundering around, you're trying to figure out how to deal in this very changing times, things were flipping out then in the beginning years of, our children. No longer could you put them in the local schools, you had to seek out other places for them and seek out other mentors, and, you couldn't do it alone, so I would say that Gwen's soft approachability in the younger years, I wouldn't say that I didn't think those were great qualities. I thought, well, you got to just, but she wasn't passive. She was very approachable. And through the years, you see how that quality draws people to be able to speak to you. Whereas if you are, come on like, well, this is the way it is, and I really think this is what you've got to do, which is a tendency that I would have in my personality, is to see black and white and kind of go for it, and now as you mature and you're, over 40 years, you really begin to see, that approachability is very important.
Yes, yes.
To be able to approach somebody. And it's almost, it was a great learning experience for me.
In what ways did you see Mrs. Coniker, Gwen, grow and evolve in many aspects of her personality or her way she would do things or her person? Was she always kind of the same Gwen through the years?
Well, I think naturally I've seen, her grow with grace, the grace of God here we're talking about. And I would say that Jerry was the anchor, and he had this very deep faith, and Gwen had very deep faith. But I think that's where I think those two began to really intermingle their gifts, and that Jerry is an anchor kind of person. You can hang on to him because he's going to anchor you and his strong character. And I've seen Gwen grow very much in her faith, her ability of prayer and faith. And, I can say that, certainly she hasn't stayed the same as when I saw her at 14. She has evolved, and that's one of the beautiful things about their marriage. And that my children see with Uncle Jerry is how he cares for her, and the kind of husband that, just going to the hospital and bringing candles and pictures and getting everything set up where she was as home because he knew that's what she would like. And everything you hear from him now is, well, she deserves the best, she deserves this, she's put up with everything. And, that gratitude, and then the same from her. So that's what it's all about, that growth in bringing out each other's virtues. And as, you're trying to help each one become a saint. And that's really where I feel they both did very much work at that,
right.
And their children, the growth of the faith in the children. Teenage life is never easy, and it was a very rebellious time. But these children in their adulthood, all have gravitated toward the faith. I mean, it's not a put-on thing. This is truly in their hearts, and their spouses are the same. you know. So that faith is deeply embedded. I mean, all the things those children did for this apostolate, I mean, scrubbing out, you know, the swimming pools and wiring things when they're 14 years old and going over to Rome and to all their suitcases. I mean, I was at the, just shaking my head, oh my Lord, what is he doing now? You know, all these kids, and they all had bags of the video equipment, and Jerry was hoping they'd let him video. It wasn't set up, you know, it was just hoping. So they saw this determination. Yes, he wasn't a father that could sit down and play cards with them, but they saw this mission in him, and he always included them. He included the whole family in that mission. They may not have liked it, but they, you know, certainly saw that he was a man that, and Gwen was always there, you know, behind him. So that's, you know, that was, and guiding him. I mean, she truly had, without her input, this would never be the apostolate. If she just passively said, well, whatever you want to do, Jerry. No, she did not. She had her input. She was very solid, very firm with what she thought had to be done certain ways. And
that's one thing I noticed about her.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like she just passively, anything you want, Jerry. No, she puts her personality into it. And so that's the beauty of seeing them at this point of their marriage and how their total devotion to each other.
Right. And she does. She's a smart lady. She picks her battles.
Oh, yeah. Yep. She knows what, you know, she's got a strong-minded husband, and she knows where she can go with it, but she always is, you know, delicate and caring about the person, and then she is able to get the things in that she feels are important, you know. No, she's a very intelligent, savvy mother and wife. I think you can learn a lot from looking over the life of Gwen.
Tell me a little bit, if there's anything comes to mind, but now, what about as a grandmother? Have you seen other qualities come out in her now that she's a grandmother, mother?
Right. Well, they certainly, you know, I saw the video they made at Thanksgiving, and just the way she interacts with the children. You know, they always, Jerry and her always make a point of taking the grandchildren out when they go to visit. You know, they have a day out with their grandchildren. You know, they go to the zoo or they do something with them, you know, and those children look forward to that. They see their grandparents as a unit. It's wonderful. And they, you know, and the way she interacts, just like now, they come in and she wasn't in her bed, she was over in the chair, and they were just startled, you know, like, where's Nana? You know, they were just a little 4-year-olds, you know, so, and then when they saw her, their eyes brightened up, so obviously she has a rapport with them, you know. She doesn't see all of them all the time, but when she does see them, and she has come in for every sacrament, and they have, you know, and I think just about every birth she has been with her daughters. So that's a wonderful, and again, that's because they have their roles together, that Jerry was the protector and the father, and allowed her to be able to do those things, because many times you can't do what you would want to do for your children because you have to work or something else is going to take its place. That's very important, but that's what I see that's passed down to the in-laws, you know, that they make sure that their spouses are there for the family on the important occasions, you know, so that's very much of a legacy that has developed through this apostolate. And there's no question in my mind that there's been special blessings that have been passed on to these children, and they will pass it on, I'm sure.
Well, they've lived a very unique life in the sense that, yes, their parents, although ordinary, and as I think it's beautiful the way they put it themselves, and it comes right from the heart, we're an ordinary couple with an extraordinary missions. You know, we admit that what we're trying to do is extraordinary, and it's not exclusively our doing.
No, it couldn't be.
Right.
I mean, I just watched my brother do the impossible. It could not be just because he's a determined businessman. No, this has to happen from heaven. It's something heaven wants on this earth. So, and again, it's the only apostolate coming out of this country, that has been originated in this country. So, and originated by a married couple, So there's a lot that's, and the times are such that the family needs that enforcement, so.
There will be, or there may be, or it is likely, or however you want to put this, that there will be grandchildren who may never have met their grandmother in person.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say to them in a language perhaps a child could understand? The type of grandmother they had and they have, and how she feels about them.
Well, to put that all in words, certainly, I feel that you would be able to definitely, genuinely tell them that she would be so happy that they're here. And she would so much want to be with them because she has shown that, that her children, like the other night, I said, wow, she's really perked up. And one of the girls said, oh, it's because all her darlings are around. Mm. So that's how they feel about themselves in her presence. And that's what I would say to them, that their presence would make her very happy and, to realize her presence in heaven. That they will always have that. And they will always have this legacy, not just the apostolate, but, separate from that as a grandmother that would love their presence, So that's probably the unique part here, that sometimes children feel like their parents are involved in things that take precedent over them, that never entered their lives. They always felt Mom was only sad to come here because she had to leave us. Not because she had to leave all her nice things, because she already had done that before the apostolate when they sold everything and went to Portugal. So obviously things were not her high point of life. It were people and her children. And she took such good care of her own mother. And I think the children know their great-grandmother through their mother, so I am sure that Gwen's legacy onto those, that I'm sure there will be more to come, with that great vast family. And they will know just by her presence in heaven that they're making her happy.
Right.
So.
What have you, this may not be an area where you may know much about, but I will ask, but Mrs. C's spirituality, did she have any that you're aware of, particular devotions or saints or that you were aware of that she particularly found meaningful in her life or consolation?
Well, I would probably, like I said, I would say always the Blessed Mother. That was always a very deep devotion in her life, and the Sacred Heart. And I do believe in the Little Flower because of the Little Flower's way, but I know for sure the Sacred Heart was always something that her parents very much honored in the Blessed Mother. So those would be the two that, I'm sure there's many saints and things that she loves dearly, but always stands out in my mind is Saint Teresa, the Little Flower, because she named Teresa after her, and which would be the little way,
Right.
So those would be, she her devotional. She was very devotional. The rosary was always the high point of their family, way before the apostolate.
Right, right.
Yeah, there was always little rosaries hanging up in a row on a hook. So, and always maintaining that even when kids were falling over each other and, still pursuing that idea that the Holy Rosary was very important to be said. So that was years before the apostolate was founded. So that stands out in my mind very definitely.
What do you know?
And Our Lady of Fatima, of course, they were drawn to her. And so that seems to be a correlation all the way through the apostolate. And then with the Holy Father's devotion to Our Lady of Fatima. So not only Our Lady, but I think Our Lady of Fatima and the Fatima apparitions always drew them. That's where they were drawn to the Blue Army to go to Fatima, and to the people that, were very close friends of mine, and the Hands, and those were the people that decided to go to Fatima. And so that Our Lady obviously was, and then when coming back to Maximilian Kolbe, who's total devotion to Our Lady. So, but Our Lady of Fatima certainly sticks out in my mind way pre-apostolate. Definitely pre-apostolate, when they were in Fatima and went there so many times to the shrine, And this, I'm sure, made a difference in the children that were there, the older children that were in Fatima, to their devotion to Our Lady.
What did you know of her parents?
Well, her mother Rose, they had deep love of God, that's for sure. They had a very deep faith, both of them. One's Irish, and and I think, definitely the way she was raised in a family where all the holidays, her mother was Italian, and she would celebrate St. Patrick's Day. I mean, all those traditions are still in all of the homes of the Coniker children. All of their homes celebrate all of the holidays, with great fervor and great tradition, and that came from Gwen's parents. I remember being invited over, and thinking, well, now I understand why my brother loves coming over here. They had a lot of joy, and there was always a party, but it all was kind of the Catholic celebrations, where it was always very definitely around a feast day, around, Holy Day.
Right, it was a true celebration.
Right, it was a true celebration, and they had heartaches in their family life, and lost a daughter, and I came into the scene just a little after that, and but saw their faith in Georgia, of course, was a very loving, and our sister Georgia, and deep faith in that, in her. I saw that very definitely, her faith in God. So that's basically what I saw in her childhood,
What should I ask that I haven't asked you yet?
I think you've done a pretty good job, Greg. You've covered, I think, the waterfront. So it's, I think we've got the main focus is her approachability and her love for life. That was very evident in her comment that she's asking God for more time. And to be asking that in her bed of pain is pretty remarkable.
When I was over there with the other Catholic Corps men just a few days ago, I was very happy to hear her say, I'm going to fight this thing. Not in a rebellious sense, like I'm going to resist God's will.
No. But
she said, I'm going to hang on to the great, what I heard her say was, life is a great gift, and I'm not just going to give up.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a lot to live for.
That's right.
I said, well, you keep fighting, absolutely. God honors that.
That's right.
Yes, it is very much.
It's very possible.
God's holy will be done.
And now that all the areas of science are exhausted, we go to completely the will of God, and she's open to that. That's very beautiful. I mean, you're not uncomfortable talking about heaven in her presence, and Jerry constantly brings up she will be with me, in heaven. She's not doesn't want to say, don't say that, you know. I mean, that's, I guess that's somebody that you can say has a clear conscience,
Yes.
you know, and has lived her life the best of her ability to serve God and do
Beautiful
the
to be
will
able
of
to
God.
say that, right?
That's right. And she may have been very hard for her to do the will of God, but she did it. And so that's a lesson in itself. It's not always easy to do the will of God and to choose that and say, what is the will of God? What is my mission in life? What is God's design for me? Not for somebody else, but for me, you know. So we're always struggling to understand that. And we can't always say, you know, well, Jerry, you know, I'm just not following you this time. You know, it's very hard, a lot of tears, but, you know, and I think that probably was the biggest block put in place for the building of a great character.
Right.
A woman of a valiant woman, you know, she's vigilant in her life of loving her husband and her children, and she's a very valiant woman. Again, that intertwining of their personalities to that Jerry helped her, and she helped Jerry, and that's the beauty of that, you know. So to keep persevering with such a drastic change from leaving, you know, you would think the apostolate belonged in Kenosha. Look at all those beautiful homes and the lakefront, and why would you ever want to move that? You know, but Jerry was being given vision that it just was too small. And I always crossed the bridge coming in here, you know, that was the famous bridge that Gwen was so glad was broken. That the trucks could never get through, so the bridge is broken, so I don't have to worry. We're not going to Ohio. Then all of a sudden the state fixed the bridge. And so every time I go over that bridge, I think, you know, there was the image, you know, we live on images. Our Lord always created images and whatever he said, so you image that bridge. And then I feel that apostolate is what this family has accomplished and done, you know, is the bridging into this century that needs a family apostolate.
Yes.
Yeah. From the last century to this century, there is such a calling and a need to see how we can live as family. Right. We need to know how to live as a family.
So rediscover it again, you know.
In the daily life, you know, our daily life is where it's at, not extraordinary things. And like they said, they're an ordinary couple. They did live daily life, you know. Gwen created daily life. She created a home. No matter where they were, those pictures went up and wallpaper went up, and Gwen had a home, you know. And that's something I always admired with her. You know, even over in the little slanted house, she somehow made that into a home. So it's, you know, that's quite a saying, because many women just would not be able to do that. Their heart was left in this other place, and they couldn't, you know, go forward. So, I mean, look at all the homes she's lived in since she arrived here. And then now they're in their little prefab house, and what did she do? She added on that extra room that now is where she can, a gathering place. She wanted it for a gathering place, but always thought, well, you know, like, this could be where I end my days and very comfortably with my family gathered around me. That's not a morbid thought. That's a very beautiful thought. You know, I have another couple that's very much like Jerry and Gwen. They've lived a very good life and together, and they have a lovely home where their grandchildren can come, and that's where he's content to end his days. And that's the way, you know, when you think, what do you mean end your life? You know, if we live our life with the end in mind, there's probably many things we would alter. But today we don't think of the end in mind. We don't want to think of that. But when you think that she already had that in mind, okay, I need more room. I need a big room for the family to gather. And, you know, there they are gathering around her now with the hospital bed and everything cozy and everything, the light from the skylight coming down. It's a miracle, really, to see that all of these things are in place. And it's not being morbid, it's being, we're here to die. We'll live our life to end it in the right way, without regret, without guilt, without saying, if only I had done.
Right.
And there's somebody that can do that. It's amazing to watch it. And I'm so thankful I was able to be here only for a few days and to do this for Gwen.
I'm sure she was.
Her illness has certainly brought the body down, but her spirit shines through.
Yes.
And her sense of humor. She had a sense of humor, a great sense of humor. She always could, give her little remarks and her things that would make things light. Yeah, she's a peacemaker. Gwen is a peacemaker. So that's a homemaker, family maker, and a peacemaker. That's the way I would describe her.